Welcome, beautiful hearts. So today I am going to initiate the Kundalini series, and the reason that I wanted to bring forth this offering to the collective is because we are very much going through a time of collective ascension and awakening, which means more and more people are going through the Kundalini awakening process. And the reason for this is that the whole of humanity, the whole of Mother Earth and all of her inhabitants are going through this particular ascension cycle, and it is a collective cycle of ascension, which means that the ascension process and the awakening process is happening through each and every one of us to the degree of the awareness that we embody, and of course the amount of light that we are able to hold within our field. And in order to hold more light, we have to venture into the darkness. We have to go through that alchemical process of inner alchemy, of inner transmutation, of alchemizing the dense, lower frequency energies, thought forms, belief systems back into wholeness, back into coherence. So this is more of an introductory video today. I will touch upon a few topics related to Kundalini Awakening, but as the series goes on, I will address more and more specific topics, such as, experiencing and connecting with the Ascended Masters and how the Guru's grace touches you, the physical symptoms that we can go through in an awakening process, the dark night of the soul, which there can be multiple of, not just one, and a lot of other topics. And I'm primarily going to speak from my personal experience, not so much the literature that I have read, because I very much feel that we are now in an era and age of embodiment. It's really about ascending in the body, not ascending out of the body. So anchoring in universal consciousness into this body, going from being that individual being into a universal being, but within the body, within the physical vessel. And also why the physical vessel is important in the ascension process, and particularly in this ascension and awakening phase that we're going through, and how we can practices to support the physical body through ascension, how to ground in the downloads that we receive, also just understanding the divine masculine and the divine feminine aspects of the self, and the processes these to go through as they do the dance, as they do the merge, and also the different routes of awakening. So I'm really going to touch upon a lot of things that I have either experienced or I have seen people who walk with me experience. So I hope you enjoy this, and please, if you have any questions, if you would like to work with me one-on-one, I do offer personalized guidance sessions. Otherwise, if you have questions in the comments, I would, of course, endeavor to answer to the best of my ability anything that I can, or redirect you to people who I feel may be better suited. There are a lot more individuals on the awakening path at this time. It is really an amazing time to be on Mother Earth. It is an amazing time. And if you're watching this video, it's very likely that you may be a way shower. You may be somebody who has chosen to incarnate in this cycle to be a bridge, to be an anchor for the lights to flow in, to guide, to lead, to serve, to heal the collective. So I welcome you all, and wherever you are on your journey, I just wish you so much love, and to know that you are deeply loved and deeply held. I do understand that some parts of this journey can be incredibly painful when we come face to face with our shadow, with the collective shadow, our individual shadow, when we see the truth of certain relationships in our lives. There's so many aspects, and some parts of the journey can feel really lonely, but that isolation and that seclusion is very much necessary. I will touch upon that in another video. Some parts can feel scary, when you're dealing with entities or dark forms or dark thought matter, You could feel like you're losing your mind. A lot of things can happen. So I really just want to be a voice of support for anyone going through this process. So before we begin, let me do an invocation to the great Mother, the Divine Mother, Mother of all. Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Namo Namo, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Namo Namo, Pitam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Mata Shakti, Namo Namo. Now I want you to visualize and imagine a house. And this house is filled with stuff, okay? It's full of stuff. There is stuff everywhere. If you had to clean this house, you would have no idea of where to begin. The cupboards are full, the attic is full, the basement is full. It's just full of stuff that's been collected, stuff that's been hoarded, stuff that has been, excuse me, passed down there from generation to generation. You might not even have any idea of what is in the attic or what is in the basement. Perhaps you've never been there. You've never ventured down to see what is in those boxes, what is lying there in the darkness, okay? And you can feel that the energy of the house is a little bit, maybe it's heavy and it's stagnant and doesn't feel full of life. It doesn't feel alive. It doesn't feel like there's much movement in the house. And there's no space really to move, you know, because there's just so much stuff. And then one day, a spark ignites in you and you decide that you are going to clean the house. And so you start cleaning the house. You venture into the basement, you venture into the attic, you have a look at all the stuff that's there, and maybe you decide that you're going to start cleaning. You're going to discard things that have no use. You're going to discard things that are broken. You're going to let go of things that maybe once held a lot of attachment to you. You were very attached to these things, maybe because of sentiment, maybe because of nostalgia, maybe because you were told that these things were important. But you begin to let these things go. And as you do that, the energy in the house begins to shift. Life returns, vitality returns to the house. You can feel that the energy is circulating in the house again. You know, the light has space to enter through the windows. And as you continue this process of cleaning and purification and allowing more light to enter and allowing more flow of energy, you begin to feel very protective of this house because you start to understand this house is sacred. You start to value this space. You start to be very discerning about what you let in and out of the space, what you collect, what you hoard. Maybe you no longer collect anything. Or maybe you only collect and keep those things that are of value, those things that add life to the house, add energy to the house, not take away from it. And so this is my little bit horrible analogy of the Kundalini Awakening process. And essentially it is a process that cleanses the house of the self, not of the self. It cleanses this space. We are so much more space than matter, but most of us live our lives in the lower chakras, okay? In survival energy, in I-ness, in me and mine. And because of the me and mine and I, the consciousness is very limited to the egoic structure, to the egoic way of functioning. And we collect a lot of belief systems that are attached to this I, okay? a lot of roles, a lot of ego identification. And so essentially what we do is we limit the space, because most of us is space and light. The soul is pure light, pure consciousness. The soul is limitless, formless, nameless. And we, in this human form, in our ignorance, in forgetting that we are this light, that we are all pervasive, we limit our pervasiveness. We limit it through that ego identification with this body. Yes, we have a body, we have a physical vessel, but we are not this body. We are not this name. We are not this mind. We have a mind. We have a name. We have an identity, but we become over-identified with it. And so we limit the greatness of ourselves. When the Kundalini awakens, when Shakti Ma rises, what she begins the process of doing is shifting the consciousness from individual consciousness into universal consciousness. From individual consciousness, the individual being then begins to start that process of becoming a divine being, becoming a universal being. So the consciousness is not solely concerned with its own self, with the body. It is not overly identified only with the body. The consciousness expands beyond just me and mine. Eventually expands to touch all of life, to understand oneself and one's role in the beautiful coexistence, to understand that my being is what affects the field, the single unified field that we are all a part of, because at the level of energy there is no separation. We begin to feel more loving because our consciousness moves from the lower centers to operating very much here in the upper centers. So we understand ourselves as one and many. We understand the interconnectedness of all of life, that we are not separate from the stars, from the moon, from the sun, from the plants, from the animals, and of course from one another. So Kundalini Awakening is very much a process of inner alchemy and of transformation on the physiological level. At all levels, one will go through a transformation. Yes, spiritual awakening is part of it, but it is not just a minor shift in perception. It is a complete overhaul of the entire system. So at the level of the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, at all levels of being, there is a transformation that takes place. So the primary purpose of Kundalini Awakening is to evolve the consciousness. It is for the evolution of consciousness that this process takes place, so that we can divinize matter, okay? We can allow the descent of spirit into matter and the ascent. So it's an ascent and a descent at the same time. And when we do that, when we go through this process, we start to walk towards being a divine being, an embodiment of the divine. It is a long process, okay? It's not a short process, depending on your nature, depending on your past life practices perhaps, or why you have incarnated. It will really depend on how long the process takes, but sometimes this process can take lifetimes for an individual to fully embody their avatar form and walk on this earth as an avatar, as an actualized, self-realized being. But once the awakening process starts, you are moving towards that. You are moving towards that. You are moving towards ego dissolution, okay? So the dissolution of the false self, the fight and flight self, the self that is ingrained in survival tendencies, that is in a state of incoherence because they are living in lack, in separation, primarily in separation. Separation from what? Separation from source, separation from God, not understanding that they are God, that you are God, that you are divine. You are divine. So all ancient cultures were very much aware of the Kundalini Awakening process, okay? And it is not only in, let's say, India, but all over the globe. And we can see this through the symbolism that has been used of either snakes or dragons or certain practices like the Order of Isis, the lineage of the rose. There are many names given to this, the serpent power, the rise of the serpent. There are many names. With the advent of, let's say, secular religion and patriarchy in this cycle, what happened is in some places this knowledge got wiped out, and at the same time it was also hidden, it was concealed. The initiates, the adepts, the great masters, they concealed this great knowledge. And there's two reasons for that. One is that perhaps at that time, the collective consciousness was not ready for it, but the seeding was already done. For the rise of the consciousness, the seeding was already done. So there were awakened beings then, they were seeding the consciousness, the blueprint basically, so that others who were to come to walk that path, they would not have to face certain things and they would have access to certain coding. Now we are in a time where this knowledge is very much being re-revealed. I'm not sure if re-revealed is the word, but let's say this knowledge is more accessible. You can be sitting in your bathroom and you can learn about Kundalini. And that is because we are in this period of collective awakening. So the more people that awakening is not for yourself. It is not for the individual ego. We can experience the awakening process through the individual ego, but awakening is never for the self. Awakening is always for the collective. It is always for the evolution of the consciousness, because when one person awakens to truth, when truth gets embedded into the field, then more people can tap into that truth and go through that process. And so the ripple gets created. And at the level of energy, there is no separation. So if I shift, it will shift the collective. Okay, so Kundalini Shakti, Kundalini is the divine feminine energy. It is the feminine polarity of God that's primary purpose serves to create, to nurture, to heal. And it is that energy that awakens. So it's not fair to say that Shakti is dormant, because nothing in this universe would move without Shakti. Nothing in this universe you cannot blink without Shakti. Okay, if you just look at your body and for 1 second just pay attention to your body and think of all of the numerous processes that your body goes through in a day without you instructing anything, without you giving any instruction, without you interfering or not interfering, this body, this system is running. And it runs because of Shakti. So when Shakti enters into the womb, it forms the spine, the brain, and the heart. And then she resides in the spine, around where the root chakra is, the base of the spine and the coccyx. And that aspect, that pure potential energy, your life force energy, remains in a dormant state. Dormant or sleeping? Yeah, sleeping, in a sleeping state. And you are left with enough Shakti to function in the external world, enough Shakti to live a normal life. Please understand that most of us use maybe 3 to 4% of our actual brain capacity and intelligence. So when Kundalini awakening happens, it is the release and the awakening and that ascent of that pure potential energy. So at the level of the body, at the level of the nervous system, let's say the respiratory system, the brain, all these systems will go through a refinement process. Dormant areas of the brain, dark areas of the brain will become active. And what this leads to is a few things can come of this. So you can start experiencing what we would call our superpowers or extrasensory powers. Okay, so let's say telepathy. Telepathy is something that can increase. Being able to see into people's aura, their energy field, reading people's minds, telekinesis, teleportation, excelling in different fields. Okay, so whether it is in science, whether it is in the arts, like it can be a burst of creativity that comes forth. You can assimilate very, very complex, very, very complex information can be assimilated easily, especially information related to the mysteries of the universe. Okay, so you can get a download and you can suddenly be initiated into the mysteries of the universe, and you can understand things very quickly. You will just know. It is a knowing that happens, a gnosis. You can maybe learn mantras very quickly, you know, from a different language. Maybe you have never been exposed to that, and suddenly you will be chanting it, you will remember it. So there are many aspects as different neurological pathways open up, as you experience different brain states. So you move away maybe just from beta and alpha into gamma, theta, and beyond. You will experience different states of consciousness. Your consciousness will expand, and as a result, also your experience of life will completely shift. You will see truth, you will know truth, you will experience reality in a completely different way. So yes, as Kundalini rises, for sure, if you are having a bottom-up awakening, that is, the Kundalini is rising from the Muladhara and making its way up, you can definitely experience the manifestation of these dormant abilities, okay? Clairvoyance, all kinds of abilities can become activated for you. And my understanding thus far is these abilities are activated so that you can serve your purpose here in this incarnation. They are not activated for one to show off or show that they have supernatural powers. If the gifts are activated within you, the gifts are activated for your service, for you to come into service, because it is through your service that the collective consciousness rises. So that is the primary reason also for these gifts to become activated. It's not for your own self and for you to think you're very special. No, it is for you to serve in your being, for you to serve in your being, to give back to the collective, to raise the frequency, to raise the vibration. So as I said before, Kundalini facilitates this process of shifting from separation consciousness, individual consciousness, where the consciousness is primarily rooted in the lower three chakras, into unity consciousness. Okay, and this is very important, because in order for the collective consciousness to rise, we must understand that we are all one. There is no separation. We are the one expressed as the many. And when we start to be an embodiment of understanding this, that is what raises the collective consciousness. That is what raises us from moving out of the lower egoic structures of greed, manipulation, shame, guilt, fear, rage, control, into a love-based system, into a truth-based system, into a system that celebrates each and every being as being an authentic expression of Source, where each life is honored for its authenticity, for its divinity, for how sacred it is. When we start to then be in coherence and in balance within ourselves and with all of life. So we understand that we are not separate from nature, and we come into right relationship with self, with nature, and with one another. A lot of the systems that are operating currently are systems that are from a fear-based separation consciousness. They have been formed in that consciousness. And so the system serves only a few, not the collective, not the many. Some people profit from the system, some people lose out from the system. So when you go through the awakening journey, it is very much, this is the aspect about being a more conscious, intelligent being. Okay? This is how one becomes a more conscious, intelligent being. Because when you have those beautiful experiences of heart opening, of the heart chakra opening, when you experience that bliss of oneness, when you feel interconnected to everyone and everything, then you will also move through life with that awareness within you. You will live your life with that awareness that all is one. So what I do to another is what I do to myself. What I do to Mother Earth is what I do to myself. And whatever your specific nature is and whatever your role is, you will be guided in fulfilling that particular mission to bring consciousness to that area of life, whether it is healthcare, whether it is education, whether it is healing, whether it is art, whatever it is, you will bring light. You will bring the light of your divinity into that, to illuminate that space, to help with the transmutation of any thought forms or belief systems that perpetuate separation consciousness, that seek to just extract or to abuse. So as you move through the process, and it is very much a journey, because you are going to be collapsing limiting beliefs, all limiting beliefs. And in the end, in the very, very end, you will realize that all beliefs are limiting. But that's a process. So you will be collapsing all of these limiting beliefs, and the consciousness will keep on expanding. You will, as you collapse limiting beliefs, as you allow the transmutation of density through you. Density can be thought forms. It can be life energy that has become stagnant or stuck. Maybe certain emotions that were not processed. Parts of you, parts of the self that have become fragmented. Okay, parts of the personality that have become fragmented. Parts of you that are stuck in certain cycles. You are looping in that cycle. It will facilitate an acceleration of your karma. So intense karmic cleansing will happen. And eventually it very much is that the divine consciousness conquers the lower egoic nature. And then the mind and the ego become in service to the soul. Ego is not bad to function on this plane, in the earth realm. We need a little bit of ego. We need a slim identity. So that slim identity will then become in service to the self, in service to the soul, rather than the inversion in which majority of the collective lives in now, where the ego is the one in charge. So there's an inversion of that process. The mind becomes subservient to the soul. And then all actions are guided by the soul. The soul comes online. Okay, your soul comes online, you awaken, the self awakens. And when the self awakens, basically, in the end, the ego bows to the self. So as this process of purification and refinement takes place, obviously all the levels become enlightened because they become light-filled. Okay, and physically also you will feel lighter. You would see one who has gone through the awakening process. They will be light-filled. It may seem that they are glowing with light. Their aura will be light. And this happens at all the levels: the body, the mind, the energy, the soul. Everything shifts. Everything shifts. You will become increasingly sensitive, very much like the house. You will understand that the house is sacred, and so you will become very sensitive to and discerning of what you allow into your field, who you allow into your field, how do you interact with the world. You know, all these things. It's a complete overhaul of the system. Life will never, ever, ever go back to the way it was when you were functioning from the small self, from the limited self. You cannot go back. Because understand, Kundalini, that is divine Shakti, that is divine intelligence, and she knows exactly what she is doing. It is that energy that has created all universes, sustained them, and also destroyed them when that creation no longer serves its purpose anymore, or when the creation is no longer aligned to Dharma, to the right use of energy, to truth, and to the right use of energy. So this energy will actually guide you. And initially it can feel very scary. I'm saying that because I've said this in other videos. I've been a scaredy cat. Okay, so when I was going through the initial stages of this process, I was terrified. I thought I was losing my mind, and I was very blessed, and I did have a guide and I did have a teacher with me, but I did think I was losing my mind. I thought that I might have to be institutionalized. I wanted to take medication. You know, I was just feeling everything, every single thing. I was feeling everything that I had numbed myself from. I was feeling other people's stuff. It was a lot. I was having the bodily sensations. So what this process 5 years on has taught me is surrender. It's just absolute surrender. And even surrender is a process. I'm going to make a whole video on that, but even surrender is a process. You bow to the energy, because that divine intelligence knows exactly what it is that you need for your ascension and your awakening. It knows exactly what it is that you need to collapse, exactly where it is that you are out of alignment, exactly where it is that you are still functioning in egoic ways of being. And so the energy will guide you. And when we stop fighting the energy, and we stop fighting our own soul, okay, that's when the process becomes a little bit easier, and you learn to flow with the energy rather than fighting it. I was a fighter, so I spent a large part of this stage of my awakening fighting and fighting and fighting. So I just want to share that, because if anyone's like a fighter like me, if you can, just lay your arms down and let the energy guide you, because it will. And understand that it is truly the energy of unconditional love. Truly the energy of unconditional love. It does not seek to harm you. It seeks to make you understand and know your nature as love. To know your nature as bliss. To know your nature as truth. To know that you are deeply, deeply held, and you are loved, and you are protected, and that fear and separation are illusions. The journey progresses. The one who was unaware of their divinity, who saw themselves as a victim of life, or unlucky, or life happening to them, or the one who did not recognize that we are all children of the divine, and we are divine. It's not only that we are the children of the divine, we are divine, we are God, we are creator beings. In humility, that process will start to happen. And you will become very conscientious of your thoughts, of your mind, of your focus, of your energy, of your flow, of where your attention is going. So it is a process, and as the refinement happens, love will guide you, and let love be your guide, and understand that this energy is pure love. And most of us are not very comfortable with love, so we may initially see Kundalini Awakening as like everything collapsing, everything that you know, reality just collapsing before you, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. And we may think it is the worst thing that could have happened to us at certain points. Especially if we're going through those cycles of ego dissolution. It can be extremely painful. You can feel very vulnerable and tender. And it just helps when somebody tells you and reminds you of the truth that you already know, because your soul was very much ready for this. Please understand, your soul knew that you were ready, and that is why this awakening process happens. And so once this process begins, the one that would see the divine outside of themselves, would see God outside of themselves, begins to worship, connect to the divinity that is within them, understanding that the divine resides right here within us. That we are not separate from life, and we are not separate from God. That God is within us, closer to us than our very breath, at each and every moment. And you begin that process of cultivating that very deep connection with God within you, with the divine within you. And all aspects of the being become divinized. The mind, the thoughts, the emotions, the creation, how you move through life. It all becomes divinized. It all becomes sacred. So I'm going to pause here for today, and I very much look forward to having you there in the next video and along this journey. And please share any experience you may have. It is very helpful, guys, at this time. There are so many people. I'm not saying the whole of humanity, but there is a large part of the human collective that is going through awakening and ascension. And the more we share, the more it gives people the support, the courage to know that they are not alone, that what they are experiencing is not abnormal, that they are not crazy, that they can get through those cycles of expansion and contraction. You know, so when we share our stories, when we share our experiences, that part in the other or in us, which is in alignment with truth, comes into remembrance. And that is why it is really helpful when we share. So wishing you all so much love wherever you are. And I just hope I can keep making really good content for you guys so that you can be supported on your journey. All my love.